If you've been feeling more tense, more alert, or waking up without the calm you used to have after 60, it may not be your age. It may be something you're eating every single day, quietly keeping your body in a state of tension. Many women over 60 begin to experience this quiet shift, where the body feels slightly more alert than it should, where sleep doesn't always bring the same restoration, and where moments of rest still carry a subtle background of tension. And over time, this starts to feel normal, expected, almost as if it's just the natural direction of life. But here's what most people are never told: your nervous system doesn't lose its ability to calm down with age. It simply becomes more sensitive to what either supports it or disturbs it. And one of the most powerful influences on that balance is something you interact with every single day, often without realizing the effect it's having. And this is where it gets interesting, because there are specific foods that can gently guide your nervous system back into a calmer, more stable state, not by forcing relaxation, but by giving your body exactly what it needs to stop holding on and start releasing that constant low-level tension. The surprising part is that these foods are not complicated, they are not expensive, and they are not part of extreme diets. In fact, they are simple, familiar, and in many cases already present in your kitchen, just not being used in a way that truly supports how your body is changing. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 3 simple foods that can calm your nervous system far more than most people expect after 60, and more importantly, I'll explain why they work so you can begin to notice the difference not just in what you eat, but in how you feel in your body, in your sleep, and in your overall sense of ease throughout the day. Because once you understand this connection, you stop guessing and start supporting your body in a way that feels both natural and deeply effective. Step 2. As the years go by, your body doesn't simply slow down, it changes the way it responds, and one of the most important systems affected by this shift is your nervous system, the part of your body responsible for how you react to stress, how deeply you relax, and how easily you return to a state of calm. After the age of 60, this system tends to become more sensitive, not weaker, but more reactive to internal and external signals, which means that things that once felt neutral can now create subtle activation, and at the same time, the body may take longer to return to a fully relaxed state. This is why many women begin to notice that they feel more easily overwhelmed, even by small situations, or that their body holds on to tension longer than it used to, especially in the shoulders, neck, or chest, and even during moments that are supposed to be restful. There is also a natural shift in how the body regulates certain nutrients and hormones that support calmness, which means that your system may not receive or use the same signals of relaxation as efficiently as before, making it easier for your body to remain in a state of low-level alert, even when there is no immediate reason for it. And this has a direct impact on how you sleep, how you wake up, and how stable your energy feels throughout the day, because when the nervous system doesn't fully settle, the body never completely resets. What makes this especially important is that many of these changes happen gradually, almost silently, and because of that, they are often interpreted as something inevitable, something that cannot be influenced, when in reality your nervous system is still highly adaptable, it just requires the right kind of support. And one of the most overlooked ways to provide that support is through what you eat, because certain nutrients directly influence how your body regulates tension, how it processes stress, and how easily it can shift into a calmer state. And if this is already helping you see your body in a different way, not as something that simply ages, but as something that responds and adapts, subscribe to the channel to continue receiving this type of clear and well-founded guidance. Step 3. The first food may seem almost too simple to make a difference, and yet, for many women after 60, it becomes one of the most quietly powerful ways to support the nervous system, and that is warm, magnesium-rich leafy greens, especially when they are prepared in a way that is easy to digest and naturally comforting. Because at this stage of life, your body often needs more support to relax than it did before, and magnesium plays a central role in that process, helping your muscles release tension, supporting your nervous system in shifting out of alert mode, and gently guiding your body toward a calmer internal state. What many people don't realize is that magnesium is not just about muscles or bones, it directly influences how your body responds to stress, how your mind settles at the end of the day, and even how easily you transition into deeper, more restorative sleep. Leafy greens like spinach, kale, or Swiss chard are naturally rich in this mineral, but the way you consume them makes a significant difference, because raw or hard-to-digest foods can sometimes create subtle discomfort or effort in digestion, which sends the opposite signal to your nervous system, keeping it slightly active instead of relaxed. This is why warm, gently cooked preparations tend to work much better, especially in the evening, because warmth itself signals safety to the body, An easier digestion reduces internal stress, allowing your system to begin letting go more naturally. There is also something else happening here that goes beyond the nutrients. When you take the time to prepare and consume something warm and simple, your body begins to associate that moment with slowing down, creating a small but meaningful transition from the activity of the day into a more restful state. And over time, this combination of magnesium support, gentle digestion, and sensory calm can start to shift how your body feels at night, not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle, steady way that builds consistency, where your body begins to hold less tension, your breathing becomes easier, and your overall sense of rest becomes more accessible. What makes this especially powerful is that it doesn't require major changes. It's not about transforming your entire diet, but about introducing small supportive elements that align with how your body now responds, giving it what it needs to feel safe enough to relax. And as simple as this may seem, it lays the foundation for everything else, because a nervous system that begins to calm down even slightly becomes much more receptive to deeper changes. Step 4. The second food works in a quieter, less obvious way, but for many women after 60, it can make a noticeable difference in how stable and calm the body feels throughout the day. And that is healthy fats, especially those found in foods like avocado, olive oil, walnuts, and seeds. While magnesium helps the body release tension, these kinds of fats support something equally important, which is stability, because your nervous system depends on a steady supply of energy to function properly. And when that supply fluctuates too much, your body can shift into a subtle state of stress without you even realizing it. This often happens when meals are too light, too irregular, or lacking in the kinds of nutrients that sustain energy over time, leading to small drops and rises in blood sugar that may not feel dramatic, but are enough to signal your body to stay slightly alert, as if it needs to compensate. Healthy fats help slow down this process, creating a more gradual and stable release of energy, which in turn reduces those internal fluctuations that can keep your nervous system unsettled. Even if everything around you seems calm, there is also a structural aspect to this, because your brain and nervous system rely on fats as part of their composition, meaning that including these foods regularly provides direct support to how your system communicates and regulates itself. What many women notice when they begin to include these foods more consistently is not an immediate dramatic change, but a gradual sense of steadiness, where the body feels less reactive, the mind feels less rushed, and the overall rhythm of the day becomes more balanced. And just like with the first food, the way you include them matters. It's not about large quantities or drastic changes, but about consistency, small additions that become part of your routine, allowing your body to receive that steady support over time. Because when your energy becomes more stable internally, your nervous system no longer needs to compensate as much, and that alone can reduce a significant amount of hidden tension. And if as you listen to this, you begin to recognize patterns in your own routine, whether it's meals that feel incomplete, or moments where your energy fluctuates more than you'd like, it can be very helpful to put that into words. So if you feel comfortable, share in the comments what you've noticed in your daily habits or how your energy feels throughout the day, because this kind of awareness often brings clarity not just for you, but for others who may be experiencing the same thing without realizing it. Step 5. The third food works in a slightly different way from the others because instead of focusing primarily on the body or energy stability, it supports the connection between your gut and your nervous system, which plays a much bigger role in how you feel than most people realize, especially after 60. And this food is naturally fermented foods such as yogurt with live cultures, kefir, or small portions of fermented vegetables, which help support the balance of bacteria in your gut, something that directly influences how your nervous system regulates mood, stress, and overall calmness. What's often overlooked is that your gut is constantly communicating with your brain, sending signals that affect how relaxed or tense you feel. And when this internal environment is unbalanced, even slightly, it can contribute to that subtle sense of unease, restlessness, or emotional fluctuation that many women begin to notice over time. Fermented foods help restore part of that balance, not in an aggressive or immediate way, but gradually, by supporting a healthier internal environment, which in turn allows your nervous system to receive more consistent signals of stability and safety. This is why, over time, some women begin to notice that their mood feels more even, their mind feels less reactive, and there is a quieter sense of calm that wasn't there before, not because something external changed, but because their internal communication became more balanced. And just like with the other foods, the key here is not intensity, but regularity, small, consistent amounts that your body can comfortably adapt to, rather than sudden changes that may feel overwhelming or unnecessary. It's also important to choose options that feel gentle for your digestion, because the goal is not to challenge your system, but to support it, allowing your body to gradually rebuild a more stable internal rhythm. When this begins to happen, something subtle but meaningful shifts. Your body starts to feel more cooperative, your mind less reactive, and your overall sense of well-being becomes more grounded, not dependent on external circumstances but supported from within. And what makes this especially powerful is that when you combine this with the previous foods, you're no longer addressing just one aspect of your nervous system, you're supporting it from multiple angles, creating a more complete and balanced effect. Step 6. Now that you've seen each of these foods individually, what makes the real difference is how they begin to work together inside your body. Because your nervous system doesn't respond to isolated actions, it responds to patterns, to consistency, and to the overall environment you create for it day after day. When you include magnesium-rich warm foods, you are helping your body release physical tension and gently shift toward relaxation, and when you combine that with healthy fats, you create a more stable internal rhythm, where your energy no longer rises and falls in a way that keeps your system slightly on edge. At the same time, by supporting your gut with fermented foods, you begin to influence the communication between your body and your mind, creating a more balanced internal dialogue, where signals of calmness become more frequent and more consistent. What happens over time is not a sudden transformation but a gradual rebalancing, where your body starts to recognize a new pattern, one where it no longer needs to stay in that constant state of low-level alert, because it is finally receiving the signals it needs to feel safe enough to relax. And this is where many women begin to notice small but meaningful changes, perhaps falling asleep a little more easily, waking up with slightly more clarity, or feeling less reactive during the day, not because something external changed, but because their internal state became more stable. What's important to understand is that these changes don't come from doing everything perfectly, they come from doing something consistently, allowing your body to adapt slowly, without pressure, without extremes, and without the need to force results. Because your nervous system, especially at this stage of life, responds best to gentleness and repetition, not intensity, and when you begin to support it in this way, it starts to meet you halfway, gradually letting go of patterns that once felt fixed. And if this way of understanding your body feels helpful, if it brings a sense of clarity or even relief in recognizing that there are simple ways to support yourself, taking a moment to like the video is a small way to help this message reach other women who may be experiencing the same patterns, often without realizing that there are gentle and effective ways to shift them. Step 7. Even when you begin to include the right foods in the right way, there is one very common factor that can quietly reduce their effect, and most of the time it goes completely unnoticed, not because it is complicated but because it feels normal, familiar, and even harmless. And that factor is eating in a state of tension. What many women don't realize is that your body doesn't respond to food based only on what you eat, but also on the state you are in while you are eating, because digestion is directly connected to your nervous system, and if your body is in a state of alert, even a mild one, it will not process nutrients in the same way. This often happens during moments that seem routine, eating while watching the news, thinking about responsibilities, having conversations that require attention, or simply rushing through a meal without truly being present, all of which signal to your body that it is not the right moment to fully relax and receive. And when that happens, even the most supportive foods, like the ones we've talked about, may not be absorbed or used as effectively, because your system is still prioritizing alertness over restoration. Over time, this creates a subtle contradiction, where you are making better choices, but not experiencing the full benefit of them, which can lead to frustration or the feeling that nothing really makes a difference, when in reality the missing piece is not the food itself, but the state in which it is being consumed. What makes this especially important is that the solution is not complex. It doesn't require changing everything you eat, but simply changing how you relate to those moments, allowing your meals to become small pauses in your day, rather than just another task to complete. This can be as simple as sitting down, taking a breath before you begin, and giving your body a few moments to shift out of activity and into reception, creating the conditions your system needs to actually use what you're giving it. And when you begin to do this consistently, something subtle starts to change. Your digestion becomes smoother, your body feels more responsive, and the calming effect of these foods becomes more noticeable, not because the foods changed, but because your body was finally able to receive them. Step 8. If you feel that this type of guidance helps you understand your body in a more relaxed and confident way, subscribing to the channel can be a kind way to continue receiving this type of support, always focused on simple and realistic changes that respect your pace and your stage of life. Now, when it comes to applying everything you've seen, the most important thing is to remove the idea that you need to change everything at once, because your body doesn't respond well to pressure, it responds to consistency, to small signals repeated over time that gradually create a new internal pattern. A very simple way to begin is to choose one moment of your day, not the entire day, just one, where you can intentionally include one of these foods in a calm and unhurried way, allowing your body to not only receive the nutrients, but also to experience that moment as a signal of safety and care. For many women, the evening tends to be the most effective time to start, because it naturally connects to the body's transition into rest. So something like a warm, light meal with leafy greens, combined with a source of healthy fat, and eaten slowly without distraction, can begin to send a very different message to your nervous system. If that feels like too much at first, you can simplify even further, focusing only on how you eat, rather than what you eat, taking a few moments to slow down, to breathe, and to allow your body to shift into a more receptive state before you begin your meal. As this becomes more natural, you can gradually include the other elements, perhaps adding fermented foods in small amounts during the day, or paying attention to how your energy responds when your meals feel more balanced and steady. What matters here is not perfection but awareness, because once you begin to notice how your body responds, you no longer need to guess what works. You start to feel it in your digestion, in your energy, and in that quiet sense of calm that becomes more present throughout your day. And over time, these small adjustments begin to build on each other, creating a rhythm where your body feels more supported, your nervous system less reactive, and your overall sense of well-being more stable, not because you forced a change but because you allowed it to happen gradually. Until the next video.